Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to start the first video in a series of videos on canning. I've had a lot of people asking me questions about canning and want me to do videos, how-to videos on how to can. And there are several other channels out there that take you through it step by step with their camera in the kitchen when they're cooking everything, canning everything and all that, and it's awesome. I would love to do that, but I have one problem. I don't have hardly any empty jars because I've already canned up years and years worth of stuff. So for me to go through enough of my preps to until they start getting more jars out there where I can just go buy a few cases and cans and stuff, it may be a while until I can do an actual hands-on cooking thing. But you're not going to gain anything more by watching me get my apron dirty than you will by me walking through it step by step on what I did and how I did it. So that being said, the first thing today I want to show you, this is chicken. It's actually all breast meat. I found a sale on split breast chicken, and if you're going to put chicken up, I always suggest you either get whole chickens or you get split breasts where there's still meat and bone, in there, because I use that to make this really awesome chicken bone broth or chicken stock, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but you see all them chunks of goodness in there? That's little itty bitty chunks of meat all floating around in there. And that is some kind of good stuff. I use this when I rehydrate my beans. When I cook my beans, actually, I rehydrate them with water, but then I do all the cooking in either chicken broth, ham broth, beef broth, or vegetable broth. It just adds a lot of flavor, and it's better than just using plain old boiling water. But that being said, back to the chicken broth. I get some carrots, some celery, some onions, and a big old stock pot. Dice it up, throw it in there, get it good to a rolling boil, and then or a simmer, and then I take my complete split breasts and sit them down in there, and I let them cook for probably about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Then I pull them all out. I let them cool off a little bit while the stock's still boiling, and I go ahead and I pull all the meat off the bone, and I shred. You can shred it, you can chunk it, you can do it however you want to do it. I just rip it off there as fast as I can, and then I set the meat to the side, and I put all the skin, all the bones, all the fat, everything that I'm not using for meat, I put it back in the stock pot. I cover it, and I crank it up to a real good simmer, and I'll let it rock and roll. And then I go back to it in about 3 hours after my first batch of meat is processed. What I do once I've shredded the meat, I just put the meat in jars. I don't add any broth to this because it's barely been cooked. You could probably actually ignore that entire process. I just do it to get some chicken flavor in the water to get the whole bone broth process started. Stack your meat in here. You want to make sure you're leaving at least a 1/4 inch of head space when you fill it up with water. I go ahead and I put in the chicken, I put in about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I try to put sodium in all my canned foods. That way I'm getting my daily intake of sodium. I don't have to worry about stocking crap loads of salt, even though I do. And then I put all my jars in the canner. The canner's got about 2 inches of water in the bottom. I put all the jars in the canner. I crank up the heat, seal it up. I bring it up to, I put my weight on there. I crank up the heat until it starts spewing steam out of the top. I let it spew steam for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I put my weighted gauge on there, set for 10 pounds of pressure. That depends on your elevation. And then I'll watch my gauge, and when it comes up to 10 psi, I just slowly start backing off on the heat on my stove. And you've got to stay really close to your stove throughout this process because you don't want to over pressurize it, and you don't want to let it drop below 10 psi. If you do, you got to start the whole process over again because it has to process for an hour and a half. This is meat. It goes for an hour and a half. Once it gets to 10 psi, I set the timer. I watch it. I'm steadily turning down the heat on my stove, and it won't take you long. You'll figure out exactly where to put your stove. I'm steadily turning it down to keep it above 10 psi, but not let it go below. I process it for the hour and a half. Once the hour and a half's done, I turn the heat off, and I let it come all the way back down to 0. Once it's all the way back down to 0, I take the weighted gauge off, let it sit for 10 minutes, then open it up. Carefully pull your jars out, set them on the counter on top of a tablecloth or a dish rag or something, and they will sit on that counter for a minimum of 24 hours until they all seal. Once they're sealed, I go back to the sink with this, put some water and some dishwashing detergent, really good sudsy dishwashing detergent, and then I submerge these jars, and I take a sponge and I wash the entire jar, lids, the sides, the bottom. I wash everything to get any kind of food residue off the outside, because that will draw bugs. Plus, it's sticky and it just looks nasty if you do that. Another tip, when you put your water in your canner, put in about a quarter of a cup or even an eighth of a cup of vinegar into your water, and that will keep your jars from getting all cloudy and all that crap on your jars. Once I do all my chicken, then I go back to the chicken broth, which has been cooking this entire time. That's why it's so good and dark. This is the bone broth. This is the first batch. And then I can this the exact same way. Since this is a meat mixture, even though it's just the broth, it's still got little itty bitty chunks of meat. I process this for an hour and a half, just like I do the meat. The process is exactly the same. And man, this stuff is so good. Oh my God. The process is exactly the same. Usually when I do chicken, I'll do probably, it takes me 2 days because I do a bunch of it at a time. I'll put up probably 3-4 cases of chicken and at least 2 to 3 cases of the bone broth. Now, the first batch is going to be dark and rich and thick. This is the bone broth. Your second batch is going to get progressively lighter, and your third batch will be progressively lighter in color because it's not as condensed as this is. This stuff here is it right here. This has got it going on, and this stuff comes in handy in the wintertime. You know, you can pop the top on this and heat it up and drink it. I mean, it's just like, you know, you can make some noodles and you got chicken noodle soup. Like I said, I use it to season all my beans. Except my pintos. The pintos, I like to do them in ham broth because pintos and ham just seem to go together. But the process is very simple. If you're scared of canning, don't be. I was until I did my first batch, and then you hear them jars seal, and then you're hooked. It's like it's crack cocaine for preppers. I mean, once you start canning, you can't stop. It's easy. It is so easy, and there's so many different things you can can. And this series is probably going to take me a while because I don't know how much stuff I've got canned. I mean, I know I've got a lot of stuff canned, but I don't know how many different varieties of things I have canned. But this is it, and this is your chicken and your chicken broth. And this stuff here, I just pop the top. I don't drain it because what's in here is chicken broth. Okay, you feel me? I've got just broth, and I've got chicken canned in chicken broth. So I don't drain this or anything like that. If I just need the chicken, say I'm making, you know, barbecued chicken or chicken and rice or anything with chicken, I'll put it in a bowl and I'll pull out the chicken that I need, and then that broth goes back in this jar. I'll put a lid on it and I'll stick it in the refrigerator because I'll use that broth within the next 4 or 5 days to make some beans or to season some grits. Oh yeah, try making your grits with a couple of tablespoons of chicken broth in there along with your water, your milk. It really thick. It's good. Yeah. You'll never eat grits differently. But that's it for now. I will keep posting more videos, and I will cover different things that you can or different things that I can. I look forward to, I think maybe I'll do milk next because everybody's been asking about milk. And yes, you can can milk. It's not recommended by the FDA or it's not in the ball canning book, but I don't give a shit. I can it and I drink it, and it's delicious. It's awesome. So we'll probably do milk next. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. If you don't want to, that's fine too. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.